The feds are very concerned about a housing collapse and the recession. Hi, I'm Harry. Welcome back to RVM. And in today's video, we're going to talk about some of the concerns that the Fed brought up at their last meeting. And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm also going to share with you what to look for in terms of market trends. And if you're a seller, when to sell. If you're a buyer, when to buy. So I hope I can share some valuable information with you. I'm pretty sure I will. Stick with me to the end, and I'll go ahead and share not only some bad news, but also hopefully some good news. Now, let's take a look at this article by Realtor.com. It says that the Fed officials discussed risk of housing market collapse at recent meetings to cut interest rates. And I just wanted to highlight some salient points here, but basically from the summary of the minutes, it said that several participants noted continued weaknesses in the housing market, and a couple of participants mentioned the possibility of a more substantial deterioration in the housing market as a downside risk to economic activity. It also goes on to say that while the Fed rate cuts could, in theory, stimulate housing demand in the very interest rate sensitive sector, it's worth noting that the Fed's policy lever is a direct adjustment on short-term rates, not long-term rates like mortgage rates. As a result, it's possible that the Fed can cut its policy rate and longer-term interest rates, such as mortgage rates, can increase, as we saw in late 24 and late 25. So that's a very good point. You got to remember that mortgage rates don't really move with the Feds. It really moves with the 10-year yield. But as far as what they talked about, what happened in late 24 and 25, I want to go ahead and highlight some of what happened there. So if you see this graph over here, right here in the solid blue line, that's your 30-year fixed rate. And then your dotted line at the bottom is your 10-year yield. So you can see here about the end of 2024, Fed started cutting rates, and you can see those rates going down according to that the dotted blue line. However, the solid blue line, as you can see there, just kept going higher and higher and higher. Okay, that's your mortgage rates going higher in spite of the fact that the Feds kept cutting rates. So that happened for quite some time, all the way to about early of 2025. Okay, and the reason for this is, again, because mortgage rates move with the 10-year yield. All right. Now, the bad news could be that in spite of the Feds cutting rates, and I'm pretty sure that they will at the end of October, that's not really going to have an impact on the mortgage rate. But what will make an impact on mortgage rates are the 10-year yield. So let me show you what I mean by that. If you look at this next chart over here, the 30-year fixed versus the 10-year yield, you see they kind of move in tandem with each other, okay? And here's the good news. It seems like the 10-year yield is moving lower and lower and lower. Now, it's not as low right now as it was back in April of this year. That's when the 10-year yield actually moved down below 4%. But we're getting kind of close. Look at what it closed at finally over here just a couple of days ago. We are at 4.0331 as of the recording of this video. Okay, so that's very important as we look at these rates. But one other reason why the Feds are really concerned, and what's going to really help them with their decision in the late October of this year, is a possible recession. According to this next article here I'm going to show you, that's one of the concerns that we have here. But before we look at that, let's look at some trends over here. As you can see, this one-year trend, we're seeing the erratic movement of our unemployment rate, but it's seemingly looking to break. We are at 4.3 since August, okay? And that brings us to the next article here by Realtor.com, which basically says that 22 state economies are in or near recession, alarming report finds. And we'll go back to this map, but let's look at what the article has to say. Again, I highlighted some salient points here. Moody's chief economist Mark Zandi shared the findings, saying that states making up nearly a third of the national gross domestic product are either in or at high risk of recession, with another third just holding steady and the remaining third growing. Goes on to say that Zandi noted that states experiencing recessions are spread across the country, but the areas surrounding Washington, D.C. stand out in particular due to government job cuts and the potential impact of the federal government shutdown. So we go back to this map over here again in red, you see all of the states that are either technically in recession or a high risk, and then the states that are in yellow are treading water, that is nearing recession, and the ones in green have room for expansion or growth. And so as it's stated, about a third are in the red, another third are in the yellow, and a third are in the green. And most that are in the green are in the South and the Midwest. So some points that I want to make here that regardless of how prices are trending on a national level, it never equals what it trends as you go more and more local, okay? And so I want to show you that. So let me take you to some graphs over here to show you what I mean. So what I did is I just went ahead and picked a state and a county just to highlight and show to you the differences between national price trend versus a state price trend versus county price trend, so on and so forth, going down to the very local level. And then I'm going to show you how this reflects on that appraisal report that's going to help you make those decisions that you need in order to sell or buy property. Okay, so looking at some information over here, we see Flagler County in Florida is at an overall balanced market. Okay, and maybe another time for another video, I'll go ahead and break down what that means. But for now, I just want to show you how these markets are moving on their individual level. And then I said, hey, let me just go ahead and pick a city within Flagler County. So I went with Bunnell. And as you can see here, Bunnell is at a buyer's market. Okay, so we move from the county being at a balanced market to Bunnell being at a buyer's market. Okay, as a matter of fact, let me go back to Flagler County just to show you this graph here real quick. So we see Flagler County right here in the yellow for this particular graph. We see the national median market value moving up. Okay. Or the median estimated property values on a national level moving up. And then in the orange is your state, and that's up here, as you can see my mouse, and that's kind of holding stable, but it is moving down quite a little bit, and that's because of the rising inventory here in the state of Florida. But then we look at Flagler County itself, and that's in the blue, and you can see that dipping down. Okay. So even though it's held steady for quite some time, but it's still above the national median. Okay, but then we go on to Bunnell, and we got a buyer's market. And why is that? Again, the graph kind of show where we're at. And then look at the blue. That's Bunnell in Flagler County, and look how it's below all of these numbers, and it's actually look like it's dipping. That makes Bunnell, for now, a buyer's market, okay? Then we move on to another city within Flagler County. And what do we see? Well, we see Hastings, and Hastings is a seller's market. Why? Well, let's look at the graph. Again, your nationals in the yellow, your county, your state is in the red, right? Hastings look like it's holding steady, okay? So we see that national price trends do not equal state price trends. State price trends do not equal county price trends, and county price trends do not equal local city, town, market area price trends, all right? But how does that reflect on that report that's going to help you make the decision that you need to make in order to buy, sell property, invest in property? Well, this is what I want to show you here. Regardless of what that's doing, when an appraiser is actually appraising a specific property, he's pulling up comparables. Okay, he's pulling up a pool or a farm list of properties that are very comparable to your subject property, and then he's making a decision, or he or she is making a decision as to where the trends are going and how that's reflected for adjustments and analysis. Okay, and so here's what I want to show you. How does that actually look like? Well, it kind of look like this, right? So here you see an appreciation of about 7% overall. But these comps aren't moving all in linear fashion together with each other. Comp one here, in this case, in April, increased by 5% compared to 7%. That's about a 2% increase in value. Comp three also increased in value, right? Comp two, however, look at comp two. It's up here. And when compared to how this trend goes to the effective date of the appraisal report from the contract date, well, there's a decrease in value here, as you can see. And comp number four is the only one that stood stable at 7%. Now, again, that's just an example, and it never falls perfect that way in terms of stability. There's always a plus or minus there. But that's just to give you an idea of how that looks like. So if you don't take anything else away from this, the Feds seems like they will cut rates at the end of October. There's about maybe an 80 to 90% chance as of the recording of this video. Polymarket have them about 88% the last I saw, and many other analysts have them about 80 to 90% as well. But remember, even though the Feds may cut rates, that really doesn't affect your mortgage rates. Mortgage rates mirror the 10-year yield. Okay, so you want to look at that. But also you want to make sure if you're going to sell your property, you're going to buy your property or invest in a property, remember that not to just look at national rates. Real estate is, as the old cliche goes, location, 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 right? It's a very hyper localized business, real estate. So you always want to boil it down to the very specifics of your market area and check out how that reflects as far as your specific subject property. So again, I'm Harry, this is RVM. Thank you for joining us. I have a great newsletter, by the way, called Redefine Value Newsletter. It's at the link at the top of this channel. I'd appreciate if you go ahead and click on that and become a member. It's free, but it'll give you some great insights and some tips as far as valuation services and some education as far as how these things go, okay? Another thing too, I really appreciate if you would hit the like button and subscribe. I like to get some more information like this out to you. And again, thank you for joining us, and I'll see you at the next video.